Welcome back to 30 Days to Learn Photoshop. This is day 17, the type tool. My name's Ben Gribbin, and in today's lesson we are going to learn how to create text and how to work with text in Photoshop. So let's go ahead and jump into Photoshop, and we'll create a new document so we can demo some of the text settings and features. So the text tool is selected by pressing T for text, and there are a couple of different ones. There's the horizontal type tool, there's the vertical type tool, and then there's the horizontal and vertical type mask tools. We're going to talk about the horizontal and vertical type tools. Now you will see when you select these tools you have the ability to change the cursor to this text cursor, and clicking onto the layer or anywhere on the document will create a text layer. Just clicking once in a single place will create a text layer that you are able to keep typing, and this layer will drop down. When you press enter, you can actually manually enter in text on new lines, and it's sort of never-ending text tool. Whereas if you click and drag, keeping your mouse down, you create a paragraph box. So on a paragraph box, if you keep typing, it's restrained within this box. So it's somewhat like a text box in Microsoft Word or Pages. So you can see the difference between those two. Options for the text tool. Well, you've got the font face or typeface here. So you select a new typeface. You can set the style, the size, the anti-aliasing. Let's just show you what anti-aliasing is if you don't already know. So if we type in a word, literally, and set this to a font where we can demo this, let's make it nice and big. This anti-aliasing feature allows us to smoothen out the edges of our type. Now you see when I put it to none, which means it's turned off, we get these really rough jagged edges, whereas if we put it onto smooth, Photoshop actually renders and works out how it can soften up and crisp up the edges, and it just makes them a whole lot smoother. So you've got smooth, strong, crisp, sharp, and then none, and there is a big difference. So generally you're going to want that on any of these four options depending on the document you're working on, whether it's a print for example. When you're typing in the text box, to commit, if you press enter on the numpad, or you can click the move tool, or you can click one of these two options up here. So this one on the left would cancel any current edits, this one on the right would commit any current edits, and it just closes off, locks the box off. Then you've got alignment, so you can align it right, center and left. Color options, you can change it to red for example, and you've got the ability to warp, which we'll talk through shortly. So that is the type tool in its very basics. There's also a vertical type tool, so let's just jump to that. If we wanted to jump to it quickly, we could press Shift T, and this is more for Oriental languages and perhaps just where you want to experiment with typography. So if we open up this panel here, this is the paragraph panel. It's got a P on the palette here, and this is the character one, which is represented by a letter A. So we'll just organise those into their own little section. Starting with the character one, basically it's a replication of the above, except this time it's got a little bit more information, a few more settings and things like that. Let's just show you how these work. First off, we've got the font face, which is fine. Then we've got style over on the right. Because of the font we're using, we don't currently have a style option. So if we just put it on Helvetica, which is down here, they're all organised alphabetically. We can set the style, any number of these. These are all native fonts within this typeface. So this oblique is a genuine oblique for the Helvetica typeface. Then below that we have the sizing. So again, you can just resize by, if you hover over the T icon and drag left to right, note that your mouse changes to a hand with some arrows under its finger. Or you can select from any of these presets, or alternatively you can simply just type in a digit that you want it to change to. It's in points, but you can also change it to pixels, and the maximum supported is 1296 points. So we'll just undo that, and then we'll look at leading. So you'll notice this paragraph we created, quite blown out. The line height is quite extreme, and that is what is known as the leading or line height. So in order to change that, again, click on the icon, drag left to right. You can enter an automatic setting, so this is the default line height for that font, and also you can use one of the drop down menus. And then there is kerning. Kerning is a way of manually changing the spacing between two characters, and sometimes you'll need to do this because the fonts are rendered automatically. Sometimes, particularly on capitals, you'll notice that spacing between elements is very slightly out, or is actually appears to be out when it isn't. For example, or on an A character, this gap here is very different to the gap here. So kerning is just a way of being able to pull the two back together. So you can change it to a minus number, or you can have it at 0, which is default, and you can change the measurement of that. And then tracking over here, you can change the spacing between all the characters within your text. So if we zoom out again, and let's undo all the changes we just made. We click onto this box and we put the tracking to, let's just keep going with it. Let's just keep extending, and you'll notice that our letters are all widely spaced apart now. So that's part of tracking. Below that, we've got the width and height of our text, so we can vertically scale and horizontally scale the text, but really this just kind of distorts it. So it's not a brilliant setting, not something that you're going to really need to use because it just distorts text and makes it look rather amateur. And then below that you've got the baseline shift and colour option again, so if you just click on that you can change the colour of your text. Baseline shift, very, very simple. All you need to do is if you click onto a text layer and then you want to place a word higher up but have it still part of this text document or text box, you can just change this, and now if I type in, oh this has gone high, let's put that to super baseline, like so. That is still part of the same text document and we can still change that, but we've shifted the baseline. So that's just a way of being able to reposition elements. Perhaps if you want to do a singular line across the top of a monitor, you could have the word right up at the top in different fonts, different sizes, but still part of the same text box. And then along the bottom, you've got faux bold, faux italic. These are interesting settings because sometimes fonts don't have a native bold. You can actually make Photoshop pretend they are, which is pretty good at doing, but sometimes it can cause a couple of bugs and errors and it might not render too well. And then pressing italic does the same thing, does a pretend italic. We've also got a capitals option, which changes all your text to capitals, and if you turn that off, it resets them. We've got the ability to capitalize the start of each word, but also set the rest of them to small caps. Then you've got subscript and superscript, which you'll see in things like the names of elements. If we change that to H2O, or superscript, just puts it smaller and above the baseline. And then finally you've got underline, which you should probably know what that does. And we've also got strike through, which, as the name says on the tin, puts a strike through the text. So that's a number of options we've got there. Again, we've got repeats of the anti-alias options and also the language we're typing in. Then on the paragraph box, we've got a couple more options. We've got the ability to indent text. So for example, let's say you wanted to put a picture within this paragraph. You can indent the text by using these options. This is going to indent the left margin, this is going to do the first line, and this is going to add space before the paragraph, whilst this one will add space afterwards. So if we do the left margin one, it should move them all, hopefully, across. So let's do the left margin, and yes it is, and we can again just use this to drag the option out. Alternatively, we can do the first line, like so. Let's just separate those out so we can do that separately. So now that one's moving independently of these, because they were all one word technically, that's why they're all moving as one. So that's just something you want to look out for sometimes. So you can move the indentation of different words, which is good if you want to position your text around pictures and such. And also we can set hyphenation on or off. Let me show you what that does. If we press hyphenate, you'll notice now it's putting a little dash in automatically for us at the end of each line, rather than just putting the word onto another line like it was doing before. Sometimes it's handy if you're creating long rows of text, but some people don't like it, so it's up to you. And then you've got more alignment options. You've got the standard 3, left, centre and right justification, and then you've got justify left, which will, if we write in a proper sentence, this is a proper sentence, and then space that properly. This will align them against the right margins and the left margins, but the last sentence will default to the left. But you notice you start to see these little gaps appearing, so that's something you want to be aware of. We can centrally justify them, so again, all the same, apart from this last line is in the centre, and we can right justify, so again, same thing, but this is on the right margin, and then we can do a full justification, which is okay providing your last sentence hasn't got 4 words on and ends up looking like that. Now we have talked about shapes, and you can use text with Photoshop shapes. So let's go ahead and create a circle. We can actually apply text to our circle. We can put it inside, outside, have it in the center of the text. So let's just show you how to do that. Draw a circle using your shape tool, and if you notice, the cursor changes from normal cursor to one with a squiggly line through to one in brackets. So let's show you what this one does. Depending where you click, it's going to actually create text on the outside of this circle. So this is text on the outside, and we can't keep going because it'll just bump into that one. But we can also drag this one onto the inside of the circle by clicking onto the direct selection tool, or the path selection tool, sorry. Clicking onto it, and you notice the cursor's changed again. We got one with an arrow, and we can then drag it inside or outside of the circle. And we can also shift the start of our sentence by dragging round the circle. We've got another indicator here, so we can actually shift that one round or pop it on the inside of the circle like so. We can type within the circle, so let's just delete that like that. Click onto the circle, and then now this is text wrapped inside the circle, and you can see it does a pretty decent job. All the alignment things and text features that we've just talked about all work. So if we keep going, you can see that we can align it within the circle still. We can do all kinds of cool stuff with that. Now you can use that technique to draw long paths. And one final thing we're going to show you, or two final things, we're going to warp some text. So this is text warped. So let's make that a little bit bigger. There we go. And if we click back onto the edit mode, so just clicking onto our text, you see this looks a bit like a sad face. Click onto that and it says warp text. Now we've got loads of different options and we don't really have time to go through them all. So practice and experiment with them. All these icons are pretty good representations of what they do. So if we just put it on flag, we can change the amount of bend and the horizontal distortion of the characters and the vertical distortion to a point where it's almost unreadable. Hit OK, and you can see we've been able to distort our text. Now that is still completely editable, so this has been edited. So very good tool, very cool. You can create some really nice features out of that. And then one final one, if we just type in the following sentence, this sentence is misspelled or misspelt. It's hard to misspell on purpose. Do that, and if we go to edit and check spelling, we can open up a spell checker, which is very handy, and that will follow along with the language you have selected here. So what have we learned in today's lesson? Well, we've looked how to create paragraph text and a free-flowing text layer, so the one that doesn't have an end. We've looked at the character and paragraph panels. We've considered using text on paths and shapes, and we've shown you how to do spell checking text in Photoshop. Now your task for this lesson is to create a layout with the following: a menu with 6 menu items, so using a free-flowing text layer will be useful for that, and then 2 columns of text underneath, so you'd use the paragraph for that. And really what you're doing is making a very, very simple mock web page. Next time on 30 Days to Learn Photoshop, we'll be looking at the pen tool. Thanks for listening.